should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. Preferably in a residential area.
The following thoughts on Hoppe Hour do not represent Cox Media Group or its sponsoring. Anything you hear may and will be used against you. Thank you. Voted as best local podcast in Tampa Bay by the Creative Loafing.
Does this seem like real life that we're about to do Hoppe Hour, Drew?
Ryan, I feel like I am an NBA player about to lace up for practice, as you said on Twitter earlier today.
Yeah.
Not a game, mind you, but you said you feel every day the joy of an NBA player who gets to go to practice.
That's how I just treat life, you know. Until I make it,
right.
I'm not even close to being in the playoffs. Drew, are you ready?
I'm ready.
What up? What is happening? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe. And I can't even figure out if this is happening on Hoppe Hour right now. Let's just forget the intro. Drew Garabo, for some reason, is here. What's up, dude?
Man, I was just walking down the hallway. Somebody told me to go into the studio. I sat down, and here I am. I can't believe it, Ryan.
I can't believe it either, because let's just get all the tension out of the room, even though there's no tension. But you hated me. You couldn't even stand to think about the name Hoppe without trying to not vomit. So I think our relationship is better, because we first began, we worked the event at Thornton's. We were cool.
Yes.
Then you were the co-host of Mike Kelta's show when he was on vacation. And then what happened was this. Drew, I tried so hard to fit in, man. I tried so hard.
Maybe a little too hard, Ryan.
That's not saying enough, man. How annoying was I after Roger and JP when I would just not leave the room?
I would say you had an unbridled enthusiasm that bordered on obsession, and perhaps it was a little bit much to stomach, and I was not as patient as I could have been.
Looking back, do you think both of us could have been better, or was it more on me for not leaving?
No, actually, I would put more of the onus on myself, because I am a seasoned radio professional, and I was once a young buck in the game like you are now, and I should have had a more firm and fond appreciation of a young dude like yourself just trying to make it. But I'm so far removed from that, having been in the radio industry since 1994, that I forgot what it's like to be a young kid scrapping with an overeager enthusiasm.
Were you ever like that when you were over the top, maybe when you're at real radio where you just drove people crazy?
No, I was actually never like that. I tried to stay as under the radar as possible, but let the important people know that I would bust my butt to do anything to ascend in the company.
So like Rob and Mike Kelta and Mike Olivero are the reason I'm here right now. Who is the reason you're in radio?
I would say the reason I'm in radio is probably Jim Phillips.
I had him on Hoppe Hour.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, he's my mentor. I was lucky to be on his program. I started listening to his program when I was about 14 years old. I would come home from school. My mom would have him on WKIS 740 AM. I heard a guy who was no BS, who was very arrogant, who was very passionate when it came to political issues and silly issues as well. I listened to him, and I thought, man, that guy sounds like he's having an absolute blast. Little did I know that one day I'd be lucky enough to work with Jim, call him a friend, and still consider him a mentor of mine who I text probably every couple of weeks with.
So how does it work? Did you get an internship at Real Radio? How did you get your foot in the door?
Great question. I actually worked at college radio at Rollins College Radio in Winter Park, Florida, 91.5, the voice of Rollins College and the best in basement radio.
You got that down, dude.
I did it for 3 years. I went to UCF. I worked at Rollins radio station, though, because they played better alternative music. I was on the air one day, and some dude called me and said, hey, listen, I work at Real Radio. They had just flipped over to the FM, and they started playing alternative music on the weekends. They were looking for some jocks, and he said, have you ever thought about being on the radio and getting paid for it?
Yeah.
And I said, sure, I guess. I've never really thought about it. So they hired me part-time to do weekends in November of 94. And then I started getting familiar with the talk people there. I was working a real job at the time. I was the assistant food and beverage director for the Holiday Inn Orlando International Airport.
That sounds fun.
Oh, it was horrible. 6 a.m. till 5 p.m., 5 days a week. It was awful. And then I somehow, through playing music, met Ed Till, who is the midday talk show host. If you think I'm a dick, he makes me look like a playful little kitten, like the most off-the-wall, nasty, demeaning guy I've ever known and worked for in my life. Love you, Ed. And then I met Jim, struck up a relationship with him. He knew I was miserable on Ed's show, and then he asked me to be a part of his show, so I was his producer.
What was it about Ed that you were just so unhappy there?
He was the kind of guy who would lambaste you on the air, and you weren't allowed to talk as a producer. This was the day of a one-guy show. I was his producer, and there was no one else working on the show, so it was basically me setting up his commercials, finding topics for him, screening phone calls, trying to fire off drops at the time off of a digicart, and him screaming at me going, "Dude, why aren't you giving me the audio that I'm looking for?" And it would be like this, dude. If like you were behind the glass and you were me, and I'm Ed Till, dude. Where is that story? And I'd hit the talk back because I wasn't allowed to talk on the air. So off the air, I'd be like, "No, Ed, was that what?" So it would be a one-sided conversation.
That's lame.
No one could hear me. They're hearing him rip me, and I was miserable. I was like, man, I left my full-time gig at the Holiday Inn to work for this jerk, and then that's when Jim rescued me, and I worked on his show for about a year and a half before I got my own show on the overnights.
Would you say the way that Ed used you and made fun of you sort of pumped you up where you kept on grinding and you never gave up?
Yeah, great point. I absolutely did. I said, I'm going to do whatever this guy wants me to do, and if he tells me it's not good enough tomorrow, I'm going to try 5 times harder. I tried, and the program director would meet with me. He's like, look, I don't know what to tell you. This guy's not happy. Ed went through producers like underpants, man. And eventually push came to shove, and Jim Phillips said, well, how'd you like to sit on my show and do some jokes and stuff? And I said, I would absolutely love to, Mr. Phillips, and, I've been a fan of yours for years.
Now, when you joined Jim's show, were you good out of the gate, or did you suck a little bit?
Well, it's funny. When I was Ed's producer, Jim's producer went on vacation. So Jim and I had just met a couple of weeks because I wouldn't talk to Jim when I first started working there.
Were you nervous?
I was the anti-Hoppe. I was very nervous. I was very meek. And he and Ed shared an office. It was a big office. And I would just go in there and do the work. And I was afraid. I was intimidated to talk to Jim because he was my radio hero, almost on a Howard Stern level. And finally, one day, Jim started a conversation with me, and I turned to him, and I just remember gushing all over him, just saying, listen, Mr. Phillips, I'm such a big fan of yours. I've been a fan for years, blah, 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 blah. So I guess he kind of liked that. So when Jim's producer went on vacation, he had me fill in, and it was just me and Jim, and I remember he was doing 3 to 7, and I remember it being raining that day, and he and I were bonding, and I did a couple of things that made him laugh, and that's when I really fell in love with radio, man. It was just immediately this kinship I felt with him. We were kindred spirits, and from that moment on, I knew I was going to work with him. And sure, there were some stumbles. He had some people on his show that I didn't really get along. Well, Miss B specifically, his sassy producer sidekick, she and I did not get along very well, and that's probably the reason that I left that show to go do my own overnight talk show.
Would you say you have a bit of an ego where you're a no bullshit guy, and when you have someone like Miss B that you guys don't really get along because you're both cocky a little bit?
Yeah, I would say so. It's like an oil and water kind of combination. I wouldn't say it probably an ego, but I have very low tolerance for people whose opinion of themselves outweighs their actual job performance.
Yes.
It's okay if you're busting your ass and you're doing a great job, technically proficient behind the scenes, but if all you do is sit there and make comments that you think are hilarious, but you're not putting any work into the show, I can't tolerate that. I've got no respect for it, and it was even that way back in the day. So she and I didn't mix very well.
Now, why do you think radio gives people such big egos? Because I find it sad, because there's such thing as having an ego. Everyone has it. But there's these guys that are quote-unquote shock jocks, and it's just sad because they love themselves, because it seems like they might be overcompensating.
There is a fine line that I think every radio personality straddles, whether they're talk, music, whatever, and it's a line of loving yourself and hating yourself. The ego masks an insecurity. We all have it to certain degrees. I was only able to lose it when I was out of radio for 3 years, and I got a taste of humility and realized that there's a whole world out there that people have to pardon my language, people have to bust their ass to work a real job. I got that perspective, and I came back into the world of radio without an ego. Now, there are people who probably think I'm cocky and arrogant. Maybe they're right, maybe not. I'm confident in what I do, but I never lose the fact that I'm extremely fortunate and incredibly grateful for the people who allow me to do what I do.
Did you ever think you're going to work in radio again? Because you were sort of an edgy talk show host,
right,
and that format was dead. Did you ever think it was going to happen, or were you just like heartbroken?
I'd given up. When the morning show I worked for on O-Rock 105.9 in Orlando, the Morning X, bit the dust. They flipped the format. They fired everybody. Morning guy, afternoon guy, evening guy, everybody. The promotion staff, everybody at the station pretty much lost their job. We all had to sit in the conference room one by one while we went to meet the guy in HR who picked us off, and we turned in our keys and shit. I sent out a couple of demo tapes. Nothing got back to me. I went that night that the format flipped, and I started waiting tables at a restaurant because I'm an earner. Like, if I don't have a job in radio, okay, what can I do to make money today? A friend of mine needed help at his restaurant, K Restaurant in College Park, Florida. I went to wait tables so I could bring in money that night. I did that for a couple of months. Then I got a job with the Orlando Magic selling season tickets. And that I thought was going to be the rest of my life. I thought I would never have a prayer of working in radio ever again. And people would tell me, you call people for season tickets, they recognize your name or your voice, and they go, hey, man, you should be back on the radio. And I go, hey, that's really nice of you to say, but there's no one's looking to put me back on the radio.
Yeah. What was it like working for the Magic? Did you have a decent time there?
Oh, I had a really good I have nothing but great things to say about the organization, the people who work there, the culture that they have. It taught me the value of volunteering. There are mandatory volunteer hours that you have to have, giving back to the community. I love that aspect of it. I'm not a salesman. I do not handle rejection that well, and sales is a rejection business. You got to go through 99 no's before you get that yes. You have people clowning you, leading you on and saying that they're going to buy something when they know that they're not, just because they like to feel pursued. It was pretty brutal from that aspect. But again, I made lasting friends there, and I loved it. It just hurt me so bad, Ryan, in my heart, because I wanted so badly to be back on the radio. I felt like that was what I was destined to do, but I just didn't see any way to get back there, and there certainly weren't any opportunities knocking down my door.
So how did you get your foot in the door with Cox Media? You're unemployed for so long.
Right.
Like, were you nervous that you would have a little bit of rust? Like, how does this go down where you get approached?
A great question again. I had been calling in to Bubba the Love Sponge show, doing basketball updates for him because he had asked for tickets to a game, and I think I hooked up his kid and his kid's mom at a game. And then I started calling Bubba's show. He and Hogan came to one of the NBA Finals games.
Really?
Yeah, and I got to meet Hogan for the first time, and that was pretty cool.
What's he like?
He was really cool, man. Very animated, brother. Pretty neat. And I always wondered what it would look like to watch him have sex on film. But Bubba and I kind of had a relationship struck up. I would call his show, and then he started doing the Radio IO thing. Spice called me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing a show on IO? And I was like, okay, what's it going to pay? And he said, we can't pay you. And I said, all right, I'll drive from Orlando to Tampa twice a month on Tuesday nights to come do a show for you, just to, get my chops. I wanted to see if I still could love radio, because I had to tell myself that I didn't love radio anymore in order to keep it from hurting.
Yeah.
When a girl breaks up with you, I'm sure you know that feeling, Ryan.
I don't, because this is my first girlfriend.
Well, you'll know the feeling when she breaks up with you. And you tell yourself, man, I didn't like her anyway, that bitch. Like, you convince yourself, even though you know you're just hurting, and you know that you would take her back in a minute. That was me with radio. I'm like, screw radio. Radio style. I would never go back on radio again if they asked me. But deep in your heart, you're like, God, I hope I get another chance to do this. So when I started getting behind the microphone in the IO studios, people were calling. I got to be me on the radio again. That's when I fell in love with it again. And luckily enough, Shark, who I've known since Orlando days, the mid-'90s or so, he was looking for a morning show guy to host, to take Chris Fisher's place when he was with Seth or Boy. And then somebody unrelated to that had me send in a demo tape, sent me an email. Stevie DeMann, who's with this company in Orlando, Cox, he sent me a message on Facebook saying, you ever think about getting back on the radio? I said, of course I do. He said, send a demo tape to this dude in Denver. I can't tell you what market it's for, but it's a top 20 market.
Yeah.
All right. Sent in a demo CD. Shark met with me, said, I'd like to talk about some opportunities with you. I sat down with Shark at the Gaylord Palms Hotel in Orlando. He said, listen, I got this demo tape from Steve Smith in Denver, and it's your name on it.
Yeah.
You happen to be one of the guys that we were talking about anyway to fill in for Chris Fisher, to take his job. Would you be interested in getting back on the radio? And
what is that moment like?
Dude, I was on cloud nine. I remember leaving that meeting going, holy crap, I might actually make it back to the radio.
Yeah.
And if I do, I'm never going to take it for granted. I'm going to put my all into it. I'll do anything I can do to stay humble, grateful, and focused. I've held true to that to this very day. I always will. And I'll always be grateful for all of the people that helped me get there. Shark, Keith Lawless, Stevie DeMann, Bubba helped me get back on there. Spice helped me get back. A whole bunch of people who I'm really grateful to.
Would you say that's why you bring so much prep and so much passion into the job, because you take each and every day and you never take it for granted?
Having been through a format flip and having been fired from Real Radio in Orlando, every day on the radio can be your last, even if you've got great ratings, even if you're sold out with sponsors. For whatever reason, somebody gets an idea in corporate that you should be playing classic hits or whatever, it could be your last day. If they're going to pull me out of a show, if they're going to flip the format and fire me, then they're going to do it with me putting everything I have out there on the field. And I will approach every show over-prepared and doing whatever I can to keep people listening.
How much time do you spend during the day doing prep?
All day. I wake up to get my son ready for school at 7:20. We eat our breakfast together. I'm on my laptop seeing the stories of the day. Seth and I are texting each other nonstop throughout the day about ideas, about bits. It is cute, isn't it? We're a great couple. And about bits, about phoners, about ideas, about just thoughts we're having. And it's an all-day process. And then when I get home from work, when I get home tonight, I'll eat dinner with my kid, and then I'll start thinking about tomorrow's show. I'll email Seth, and it's a nonstop process.
Are you ever burning out, though, because it's a process you're doing 24/7?
No, because all I think about is how I used to work 12-hour days with the Magic on game days. You'd show up at 8:30 in the morning. You would work the game itself, so you'd be out until after the game, which was like 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And for what? To sell season tickets wearing a suit, being miserable? So if I could put that much effort into that job, which I did not love, I will certainly put more effort into a job that I do love to keep myself on the air.
How nervous were you coming to this market? Because it's such a big market. Did you think you would make it work, or did you think it was going to be a bust?
I did think it was going to work, and I knew I was going to do whatever it took to make it work. It was very different dealing with Seth because he is a very different cat. He is very demanding, and at first I had never worked with a producer like that. My producers in Orlando, I had some great ones, but they were not as intense or committed to delivering content every day. Seth's a different animal, and I knew from the minute that I met him that I could actually learn from him. I'm way older than he is by at least 10 years, but I knew that I could learn from him and learn how to do a great show. So I trusted him then. I trust him now. It was intense, and it could be brutal, and there were moments when we did not see eye to eye, and we butted heads, and I was here, and my family was in Orlando, and I would just sit there and go, geez, man, I got back into radio to work with this guy who's so demanding. He's better now, but if one thing went wrong during the show,
he would freak out?
He would kick things over. He would walk out during a break. He would take his headphones off during a break and leave you there alone. And I'm like, how am I supposed to deal with this? But we got through that, and now he's way better than he was back then.
What's one time when he freaked out so badly that it comes to your mind where you're just like, Jesus, Seth?
The worst moment we've ever had together was with the alleged comedian Tom Green.
Yeah.
We were forced to do a segment every day called Real Sex with the Morning X. We had to do a sex segment because they saw the ratings. They're like, this is the only highly rated moment of your show. People love the sex stuff, so you're going to do it every day. When you have to talk about sex every day, it's going to get forced. We had the opportunity to have Tom Green in because he was appearing at, whatever comedy club, Improv, I think. And Seth was very honest with me. He said, look, this is real sex. You're going to have to get Tom Green to talk about sex.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever interviewed Tom Green, but you're not going to get him to talk about anything.
How come?
Tom Green's going to be Tom Green.
Yeah.
Like, he's wacky. He's off the wall. So from the minute the mic's open and I said, hey, Tom, you ever get any groupies for comedy? Oh, Drew, I'll tell you, I'm doing the Edinburgh, Scotland Comedy Festival, and I got this weird car over. Just being Tom Green. And I lost control of the interview, and Seth ripped me afterwards. After it was all over, he ripped me to pieces. Like, why did we bring you in here from Orlando?
What?
Basically, you suck. I guess it's true what everybody said about you, that you're hard to work with. Like ripped my heart right out of my chest, and I cried. I'm not afraid to say it. Like, I felt like I had let him down. I felt like my career was over. We have not had a moment like that since. We've yelled at each other, sure, but we've never been mad at each other for more than an hour or two. And I remember driving back from Orlando after that show, and I saw that he was calling, and I'm like, screw you, buddy. Just hung out. And hung up on him, and then he called back. He said, look, we're going to have to work together. Let's work this out.
So How would you describe that era? Are you proud of the show, even though it didn't last long?
I am incredibly proud of the work that Danielle, Seth, and I and Nikki put in every day. We busted our ass. We were fighting against a very weak signal with 97X. We were fighting against trying to balance that music/talk hybrid that is really, really hard to pull off, man. I remember when Mike Calta, at the time Callahan, had to do it in the afternoon. Even as a listener, I loved listening to Mike, but when they would go to Pink Floyd or when they go to Metallica, I don't want to hear that crap on the radio. I'm out. So we had to try to balance that. That's not to offer excuses for our low ratings. Our ratings sucked. We lost a panelist. We went from being consistently ranked in the top 3 with, persons 25-54, and then I don't want to get into the Arbitron details because we can get in trouble for that, but we stumbled a bit, and that's when they decided to switch things up over there, put the listener in control of the music. But to this company's credit, they found a place for me over on 102.5 The Bone. They found a place for Danielle on 97X, and they found a place for Seth with Hot Mornings with Jade.
So what's it like when you did In Your Face? Was that you when you were on Real Radio, or were you sort of forced to do that act? Like, what was that show?
You really are asking some great questions, and you're not making it about you, which is phenomenal.
For once.
They came to me and said, look, we're interested in putting you on The Bone. What's your angle? What's your niche? Well, what do you mean, what's my niche? Well, you got to have a niche. We got Billy Madison. They're the wacky guys who are going to tase you in the balls.
Yeah.
We got Cowhead. He's the guy who's going to do this. We got Bubba. He's the guy who's going to do this. What's Drew Garabo all about? I found success in Orlando of being a controversial guy. I found success in saying things that were outlandish, not necessarily things I didn't mean, but over the top. So I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to be. And I thought long and hard about this. I'm going to be in your face with Drew Garabo. I'm going to be the guy, just me and a microphone, and I'm going to be giving my opinion. I'm going to invite you to call up and argue with me. And I'm going to shove it down your throat and up your ass, and that's my niche. And they said, that sounds interesting. All right, we'll give it a shot. I barely beat out Shannon Burke. They were considering him at the time. And I remember I didn't know who everybody was pulling for. I didn't know if I was going to get the show. And if I didn't get the show, probably out of radio.
Yeah.
So I sold the In Your Face gimmick. A show like that is going to have a shelf life. You can only do so much with it before you're doing the same thing over and over again. So many over-the-top opinions. Eventually, the well's going to run dry, and you're going to start to drive listeners away. And fortunately enough, before that happened, Shark and then John Brennan, even when he was just an assistant to Shark, started having conversations with me about how do we get you from here, where you are right now doing this gimmick, to a more universally appealing show where it's about entertainment. Fortunately, we went to the Drew Garabo live format right in time to go to afternoons when Mike went to mornings, and so far the results are pretty good.
How hard was it, though, when you went to afternoons and you had to be nice for once? Was that weird?
It was a little weird because when you develop certain habits, whether it's golf, tennis, radio, you're going to keep those habits. If you're yipping your putts, or if you're jerking your head up when you're trying to swing, just because you go to a different golf course, you're not automatically going to not do those things. So I would slip into it every once in a while, and it helped me get Seth on the show because I worked really hard to get Seth away from Jade because I knew how miserable he was with her. He talks about how he loves her now and all that crap. I had to listen to conversation after conversation about how horrible she was, about how she has no work ethic. She wouldn't show up to work. She was loud. Not to badmouth her, but she's not one of my favorite people. So I had to sell them on giving me Seth. And finally, it really helped me get Seth on the show by saying, look, if you want me to be Drew Garabo Live, I need a producer who's not afraid to drive me there, who's going to not accept when I turn into In Your Face with Drew Garabo. So after a couple of difficult conversations with the bosses, they finally gave me Seth, and now they are intolerant of the In Your Face persona. I can argue with people, but it's not okay to tell them to go to the Skyway and drive off.
Now, do you miss doing that, or does it feel good to be nice?
It feels good to be myself. There are moments when I have an opinion that is counter to a caller's opinion, and I have to check myself to make sure that I'm arguing it in the right way that's not going to drive listeners away. That is the challenge, to not call them a dumb dick, to not make them feel horrible about themselves as a human being, even though some people's opinions should make them feel horrible. Yes. But I can't do that, and I get that. Those are the only challenges. But it is so great to not hear "you're the guy I love to hate" or
Yeah.
"you're such a dick and that's why I listen every day." People still say that, but I know who I am on the radio, and I'm comfortable in my own skin now, and it feels tremendously rewarding to be myself on my show.
Now, what does everybody on your show bring to the table?
All right. Seth obviously brings a great game plan and a perspective that is so out there that you just couldn't even write some of the stuff that he brings.
Yeah.
Like he and his marriage with Phoebe, both of them being in radio, gives us a great perspective. Kevin is one of the soul brother. Kevin is one of the funniest guys I've ever met in my entire life. And funny, not in a traditional, predictable radio way,
Yeah.
but funny in a real life way. He's going to give you a comment that hits you so unexpected that he makes me laugh so many times in a day that I think he's 1 in a million talent. I'm very, very lucky to have him on the show. Nikki is very driven. She learned from the best in Seth. She is familiar with his game plan. It's like a Randy Moss getting plugged into a Bill Belichick system.
Yeah.
Not that she's a problem like Randy Moss was, but she knows Seth's system. She knows how to deliver a great show. She knows what we're looking for and what we're not looking for on the phones. So she does an exceptional job there. And me, I execute the game plan that Seth has, and I guess I probably have my own skill set, even though I don't know what that is.
How hard is it to switch hosts and co-hosts at times when you have to switch the team around? How hard is it to adjust your show?
Honestly, it's probably the easiest thing in the world. You could give me tomorrow a staff of people that I've never met before, and I think that I could put on a pretty good show.
Why?
I don't know. I'm pretty good at reading people. I'm pretty good at learning. Thank you. I'm pretty good at learning what makes someone tick. I'm pretty good at trying to bring the best out of someone. So I don't want my crew to go away. I want this to be the crew that I'm with until the end of my career. But I'm realistic enough to know Kevin's got aspirations about getting his own show, and he should one day. Seth, I hope to be working with for the rest of our lives together. And Nikki, who knows what she's going to do. I'd love to have her. But tomorrow, if they say, hey, you got this person, this person, this person, awesome. Bring them in and let's put on a show together.
Because you're very good at making people feel comfortable. Like, I thought you were going to tear me apart a bit today on air or be meaner, but I was so surprised by how nice you were.
Yeah, people will be surprised when they get to know me on a personal level that I am not the asshole that they think I am on the radio, that I'm a truly compassionate person who wants other people to feel good about themselves. And I've learned through the years to develop a very thorough and profound sense of empathy where I've been through a lot in my life. And that's the reason why I'm here today. When you tweeted out last week that your podcast helped you get through depression, that reached me, man. And it made me realize I have not been treating you very well. I have not been as supportive as I could be.
I also deserved it.
No.
You were a bit over the top, but I deserved it, dude. I was using the room when Nikki felt like I forced her out because I was being weird in the way that I asked, can I use the room? That moment when me and you went back and forth, or you crushed me on air, rather, that taught me everything. That was the game changer.
Ryan, there were probably ways that I could have taught that to you using different methodology.
I was scared talking to you.
And I don't want that to happen. I want you to be respected, and I want you to know that you're appreciated, and I'm still a work in progress. I'm nowhere near where I want to be as a human being, but I'm getting there, and that's what it's all about.
How can you improve as a human? What do you need to do, Drew?
I need to develop more of a tolerance when things don't necessarily go the way I've planned. I need to have a greater perspective in that we're all in this life together, man. People who I have a very heightened sensitivity when it comes to criticism. I can handle criticism from John Brennan because he's my boss. I can handle criticism from Steve Smith because he's the vice president of programming for this company. It's when some armchair jagoff on Twitter wants to tell me that, hey, time to change the topic, or, oh, yeah, that wasn't... If you don't like it, don't listen to the show.
They're pussies that have nothing better to do.
But are they pussies, Ryan, or are they so empty inside and they have such a low opinion of themselves that instead of building themselves up, they want to find someone who is successful in their eyes and bring them down to their level? It's very sad, and I try, and often fail to remind myself that these people only lash out because they're hurting inside.
And they would never say it to our face, for the most part.
For the most part. Some of them do, and I respect it. I've been out at events, and people are like, hey, man, your show sucks. And I say, thank you very much. And they go, what do you mean, thank you? I said, your show sucks. I said,
yeah.
Thank you. You know who I am.
Exactly. Like, I love when they think that words hurt us. Like,
Right.
I'm really trying to be more thick-skinned.
Yeah.
Because I used to go back at people, and now people say I suck, and I say thank you for listening,
Yep.
and thank you for reaching out, and I'll add them back on Twitter to creep them out.
Me too. Or I'll favorite a tweet of theirs randomly. Like, I'll block somebody, and then I'll go favorite some random tweet.
From, like,
just
2 months ago.
Exactly. So they're like, what is he doing looking at my timeline? I don't understand. I block aggressively because there's just certain things I don't want to read about myself. But then sometimes I'll unblock and not say a word about it. Look, I get it. Faceless trolls love to lash out because they are unsuccessful and unfulfilled in their lives. I am successful, and that is truly the greatest revenge, is living well. I just need to do a better job of not being so sensitive when it comes to this art that we call radio.
Now, I want to ask you this without making it about me. Where should young radio hosts go? How should we approach making it in this business?
You're doing the right things because you've ingratiated yourself with Mike Calta. Finding someone like that who can appreciate your effort, who can appreciate your contributions, is invaluable. That's the way you do it. People go to broadcasting school, and if you think that's a great way to get your foot in the door, awesome. I'm not
scary.
here to,
I went there too.
Yeah, I'm not here to tell you that's a bad avenue. Anything that you can do to get your foot in the door is good. Internships, broadcasting school, delivering pizzas to a radio station, whatever.
Yeah.
But learn from everyone. Meet the right people, impress them with your work ethic, your desire, your drive, and your enthusiasm, so that even a guy like me who's intolerant, who would say, Hoppe, you're a pain in the ass, leave everybody alone, still has to respect the fact that you want to make it so bad that your enthusiasm, your drive, your determination, and your hustle cannot be questioned.
Where do you want to see your show in 5 years? Do you want it to be syndicated?
No. Syndication was never really a goal of mine. You lose a local flavor when you syndicate. I would love to be right here. I know it sounds trite, but I would love to be right here in 5 years.
This
in
is
the
a good
afternoons
market,
in
dude.
Tampa.
I love this market.
Dude, I cannot tell you. I did so much radio in Orlando, and I thought it was a pretty good market, but it's a weird market when it comes to the mentality of people. Tampa's different. Tampa's more of a blue-collar town, more of a working man's town, but there's big money here too. The people here have been so supportive, have been so amazing to me and my son. When they see us out in public, people will give me an LOD, and they don't know what that means to me. They support me. They support the podcast that I do with Seth Kushner, Drew Garabo Uncensored. Search for it on iTunes. And it means the world to me. This market has been the greatest working experience of my entire life, and I hope I retire here when I'm 80 years old.
Now, before I let you go, for people that hate you, for people that think that you're a douchebag, why should they give your show a second chance?
Because it's all about entertainment. Everything that we do is designed to entertain you as a listener.
Yeah.
Whether it's an over-the-top opinion, whether it's a weird bit, whether I come off as a creep, whether you think I'm a flip-flopper, whether you think I'm a hypocrite, it is all designed so that you are entertained by what is coming out of your speaker. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not here to get you to love me. I know that there are those of you listening right now who already have the preconceived notion that I'm a dickbag who has no appreciation for his listening audience. You couldn't be more wrong. I'm just here to get you to be entertained and to react. And if I've evoked some kind of reaction, awesome. I hope it made your day.
Now, where can people find your work online and on the radio?
All right. On the radio, we're at theboneonline.com, broadcasting live 2 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 102.5 in Tampa. The podcast that I do with Seth Kushner is Drew Garabo Uncensored. It's on iTunes. Better yet, just follow me on Twitter, @DrewOnTheRadio. We don't have a website because pretty much Twitter is our website, and everything we do can easily be tweeted. We always tweet new episodes when we do them. We have an episode with Micah Rotunda that is going to air this Saturday that is probably the most inspirational piece of audio you're ever going to hear. When you hear that this young lady who comes from wrestling royalty and is one of the most committed to fitness, positivity, and energy people I've ever met, when you hear how she went from 250 pounds in high school to where she is right now,
Jesus, I didn't know that.
you'll hear the story we're going to drop it on Saturday, and it's going to blow you away.
Well, dude, keep up the good work. I'm just glad we're on a good note now. It didn't feel right when you hated me. I was like wondering if I was going to ever make it because I don't need the top afternoon show bashing me in prime time when everyone's in traffic.
Well, don't worry, Scotty Davis will never bash you. But we're cool like Vincent and Jules in Pulp Fiction. When Vincent flips up the briefcase with the code 666, the light comes on. Ryan,
Man, you are a geek.
We cool. I'm a Pulp Fiction geek.
Keep up the good work. Thank you
too.
for doing this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
This has been Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, saying peace out.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.